The rain fell hard that night, drumming against the old roof of the small house like angry fingers. Inside, the lights flickered, and the air smelled of damp wood and sadness. David sat at the wooden table, his hands pressed tightly against his forehead. In the corner of the room, two little girls, twin sisters with big curious eyes, slept soundly, their breaths soft and peaceful. They had no idea that their world was about to break apart forever. But their mother knew. Miriam stood by the doorway, a small bag in her hand, her eyes sharp with a mix of fear and coldness. She was dressed in a faded red gown, the same one she wore when David first met her years ago. Back then, she looked like hope itself. Now, her face carried nothing but bitterness. "David," she whispered, though her voice shook with something more than anger. "I can't do this anymore." David looked up slowly, his eyes red and tired. "Do what?" His voice was low, as if he was afraid to wake the twins. "This life," she spat, pointing around the room. "Look at us. Look at this house. I didn't marry you to suffer like this. You promised me the world, but all I have is hunger, debt, and shame." His chest tightened. "Miriam, things will get better. I'm working hard. I'm doing everything I can." "Everything you can," she cut in sharply. "Working at the factory from dawn till night. Coming home with barely enough money for bread. Do you think that's enough for me? For us? I want more, David. And I won't waste my youth waiting for miracles that will never come." David stood, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. He walked closer to her, his eyes begging, his voice trembling. "What about the girls? What about Anna and Angela? They need their mother." For a second, Miriam's eyes softened as they darted toward the sleeping twins. But then she hardened again, looking away. "They'll survive. Children are stronger than you think." David's throat felt tight, his heart pounding like a hammer. "You can't leave them. You can't leave me. Not like this." But she didn't reply. She turned her face away, her grip tightening on the bag. Outside, thunder cracked, as if the sky itself was angry at her choice. "Please, Miriam," David whispered, his voice breaking. "Don't walk out that door. We can fix this. We can start over. Just, don't go." She finally met his eyes, but there was no love left in hers, only emptiness. "I've already made my choice." And with that, she pulled the door open. Cold rain rushed in, kissing the floor with wetness. She stepped out, her red gown vanishing into the night. David stood frozen, his legs heavy as if chained to the ground. He wanted to run after her, to drag her back, to scream until she changed her mind. But his body refused to move. The door slammed shut, and the silence that followed was deafening. David turned slowly, his eyes falling on the twins. They shifted in their sleep, as if sensing the loss, though they didn't yet understand it. His knees buckled, and he sank to the floor, burying his face in his hands. His chest heaved with sobs he couldn't hold back. "Why, Miriam, why?" he whispered into the empty air. But there was no answer. Only the rain. The night dragged on, heavy and endless. David sat by the bed, watching his daughters sleep. His mind replayed every word Miriam had said, cutting him like sharp glass. He thought of the promises he made when they first married. How he told her he would give her everything. How he swore he would never let her suffer. But life had not been kind. The factory job barely paid enough. Bills piled high. Dreams crumbled. And now, the woman he loved most had chosen wealth over family. He wanted to hate her. He wanted to curse her name. But all he felt was an aching emptiness. A small hand tugged at his sleeve. He looked down. It was Anna, the older twin by just 5 minutes. Her sleepy eyes blinked at him. "Papa, why are you crying?" she asked softly. David quickly wiped his tears, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm not crying, sweetheart. Just tired." Angela stared next, her tiny arms wrapping around his neck. "Where's Mama?" she mumbled. David's chest tightened again, but he pulled them both close, kissing their foreheads. "Mama had to go away for a while. But I'm here. I'll always be here." They nodded sleepily, too young to understand the weight of his words. Within minutes, they drifted back into dreams. But David couldn't sleep. Not that night. Not after watching the woman he loved walk away. He sat there in the dark, the storm outside echoing the storm in his chest. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the pain and despair, a tiny flame flickered. A promise. He didn't know how. He didn't know when. But he swore that night that his daughters would never suffer the way he did. That no matter how broken he felt, he would raise them strong. He would give them the life their mother thought impossible. Even if it killed him. As the first light of morning crept through the cracks of the old house, David whispered to his sleeping twins. "You will rise. You will shine. And one day, the world will know your names." They didn't hear him, but perhaps the universe did. Because that night, in the ashes of heartbreak, the seeds of greatness were quietly planted. And no one, not even their mother, could have guessed that those two little girls would grow to become billionaires. The morning after Miriam left, David woke up to silence. The storm had passed, but inside his heart, the thunder still roared. The small house felt emptier than ever, even though the laughter of two little girls soon filled it. "Papa, I'm hungry," Angela said, rubbing her sleepy eyes. David forced a smile and ruffled her hair. "I'll make something for you, princess." But when he opened the kitchen cupboard, his chest sank. Only half a loaf of bread and a few drops of milk remained. He closed his eyes, fighting the sting of tears. How could he tell them their mother was gone and food was almost finished? "Papa." Anna's voice pulled him back. She stood in the doorway, watching him. Her face was so serious for someone so small, as if she already understood more than she should. "Don't worry," David said softly, turning back with a weak smile. "I'll fix everything." But deep inside, he wasn't sure how. David's days became heavy with struggle. He left the house before sunrise, working long hours at the factory. His hands blistered, his back ached, and his stomach often went empty just so his daughters could eat. At night, he returned home exhausted, but the twins ran into his arms with pure joy, their love giving him the strength he thought he no longer had. Yet every time he tucked them into bed, he remembered Miriam's words, "Children are stronger than you think." He wondered if she was right. Were they strong enough to grow without a mother's love? Were he strong enough to raise them alone? The fear haunted him, but so did a quiet fire in his heart, a voice that whispered, "You cannot fail them." One evening, when the sun dipped low and the sky turned orange, David came home to find Anna sitting outside on the wooden steps, staring at the horizon. "Why do you look so serious, my little queen?" he asked, dropping beside her. She turned to him, her eyes glistening. "Papa, the other kids at school laughed at us today. They said Mama left because we are poor. Is that true?" David froze, the word stabbing deeper than any blade. His throat tightened, but he couldn't let his daughter drown in shame. He lifted her chin gently. "Listen to me, Anna," he said firmly, his voice trembling with both pain and strength. "Your mother's choice has nothing to do with you or your sister. You two are my treasures. Never forget that." Tears slid down Anna's cheeks, but she nodded slowly. David hugged her tightly, hiding his own tears in her hair. Life pressed harder. Bills piled up. The landlord banged on the door, demanding rent David couldn't pay. Some nights, he worked extra shifts, leaving the twins in the care of an old neighbor. He hated those nights the most, returning to find his daughters already asleep, their little faces pale from waiting for him. But there was also beauty hidden in the struggle. On weekends, when he had no shifts, David told the twins stories, tales of kings and queens, of heroes rising from nothing. He made their small living room feel like a palace, their torn dresses like gowns. Remember, he told them, pointing at their hearts, true royalty doesn't come from crowns or castles. It comes from here. If you believe in yourselves, no one can stop you. The twins listened with wide eyes, their young minds soaking up his words like dry earth drinking rain. Yet, the outside world was cruel. One cold morning, David walked the girls to school. Their shoes were worn out, the soles almost gone. As they entered the schoolyard, a group of children pointed and laughed. "Look at their shoes," one boy sneered. "No wonder their mama ran away." The laughter rang loud, sharp as knives. Angela's cheeks burned red as she grabbed Anna's hand. David clenched his fist, fury burning inside, but he knew he couldn't fight children. Instead, he knelt down, meeting his daughter's teary eyes. "Hold your heads high," he whispered firmly. "Don't let their words touch you. One day, you'll walk in shoes they can only dream of. One day, they'll look at you and see queens." The twins sniffled, but his words planted seeds of pride in their young hearts. They walked on, hand in hand, their father's promise echoing louder than the cruel laughter. That night, when the girls were asleep, David sat alone at the table, his fist pressed against his forehead. His body screamed with exhaustion, but his mind wouldn't rest. He thought about their future, the dangers of poverty, the shadows of shame, the weight of being father and mother at once. And then something sparked inside him. He remembered the promise he made the night Miriam left: "You will rise. You will shine." He leaned back, staring at the cracked ceiling. "I can't let them grow up believing they are less," he whispered to himself. "I have to give them more. I don't know how yet, but I will." That quiet vow wrapped around him like armor. From that day, David changed. He worked harder, yes, but he also began to think differently. Instead of waiting for life to improve, he started looking for ways to create something better. He read borrowed books, asked questions, and saved every extra coin. His eyes no longer held only pain, they carried a hidden fire. His daughters noticed it too. When he smiled now, it wasn't just to hide tears, it was a real smile, the kind that gave them hope. Still, the world continued to test him. One evening, after another long day at the factory, David came home to find an eviction notice nailed to the door. His heart dropped, his hands trembling as he read it. They had 2 weeks to leave. The twins came running, holding up drawings they had made for him, their eyes full of excitement. "Papa, look. We drew our family," Angela said proudly. David forced a smile even as his vision blurred with panic. He hugged them tightly, hiding the notice behind his back. Inside, fear battled with determination. He was a broken man, yes, but he was also their only shield. And he swore, once again, that no matter how dark life grew, he would not let the shadows swallow his daughters. Because hidden inside his brokenness was a strength even he had not yet discovered. And that strength was about to change everything. It was a bright morning, years after that stormy night when Miriam walked away. The twins, Anna and Angela, were no longer little girls. They were young women, strong, confident, and full of fire. Their father, David, had kept his promise. He had worked, struggled, and sacrificed. He had taught them courage when the world tried to shame them. And slowly, through small steps, his hard work began to pay off. The little family had grown from nothing to something extraordinary. The twins studied hard, created ideas that amazed people, and started a small business with the little savings David scraped together. What started as a small dream grew into something powerful. Before long, the world began to whisper their names. Anna and Angela were no longer the poor girls with torn shoes. They had become women of influence, respected and admired. They were on their way to becoming billionaires. But just when life seemed brighter than ever, a shadow returned from the past. It began on a Sunday evening. The three of them were at home eating dinner together. The house was bigger now, warm and filled with laughter. Suddenly, a knock sounded at the door. David stood up slowly, his heart uneasy. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened the door, his breath caught in his throat. Miriam stood there. Her red gown was gone, replaced with fancy clothes and expensive jewelry. But her eyes were not as proud as before. They were softer now, almost desperate. "David," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's me." For a moment, the past rushed back, the storm, the tears, the night she left him broken. His fist tightened at his side. Behind him, Anna and Angela rose from their chairs, shock freezing them in place. "Mama!" Angela's voice cracked. Miriam's eyes filled with tears. "My daughters," she whispered, reaching out her hands. But neither girl moved. The room grew heavy with silence. David's chest rose and fell, anger and pain boiling inside him. "Why are you here, Miriam?" he asked, his voice hard. She looked down, shame painting her face. "I made a mistake," she admitted. "I thought living would give me a better life. But I was wrong. The people I trusted abandoned me. And now, I have nothing. Please, let me come back. I want to be a family again." Anna's hands shook at her sides. She remembered the nights she cried because other children laughed at her. She remembered the pain of asking where Mama was and getting no answer. Angela stepped forward, her voice sharp. "You left us when we needed you most. Do you think you can just walk back into our lives because you're lonely now?" Miriam's tears spilled down her cheeks. "I know I hurt you. I was selfish. But I'm still your mother." Anna's voice was quiet but firm. "A real mother doesn't run away. Papa stayed. He's the one who raised us. He's the one who believed in us." The twins turned to look at David. His eyes glistened with pride and pain. He had carried the weight alone all these years, and now the woman who broke him wanted to return. Miriam fell to her knees, sobbing. "Please, forgive me. I have nowhere else to go. I just want a chance to make things right." The twins looked at each other, their hearts torn between anger and pity. Finally, David spoke, his voice steady. "Miriam, you made your choice years ago. I begged you to stay, but you turned your back on us. I raised these girls alone, and I will never let anyone hurt them again. Not even you." His words cut through the air like a blade. Miriam gasped, her eyes wide with shock. "So, you're saying there's no place for me here?" David looked at his daughters, then back at her. His voice softened, but his decision was clear. "We forgive you, Miriam. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You can't erase the years you were gone. The family you left behind is no longer the same. We have moved on." Anna's voice was calm, yet firm. "Mama, we wish you peace. But we don't need you to complete us anymore." Angela nodded, tears in her eyes. "We already have everything we need. Papa gave us that." The silence stretched. Miriam covered her face with her hands, her sobs filling the room. For a moment, David almost wavered, but then he felt the strong hands of his daughters holding his. The choice was made. Miriam stood slowly, her shoulders heavy with regret. Without another word, she turned and walked away, this time not into the storm, but into the emptiness she had created for herself. The door closed behind her, and the three of them stood together, hearts beating in unison. David turned to his daughters, pride shining in his tired eyes. "You see," he whispered, strength is not about wealth or power. It's about never giving up on each other. Anna hugged him tightly. Papa, you were our strength when everything was broken. Angela smiled through tears. And now, we'll be your strength too. That night, as they sat together, the pain of the past slowly gave way to peace. They were no longer defined by the woman who abandoned them. They were defined by love, by resilience, and by the bond that could never be broken. The world would soon know their names, not just as billionaires, but as survivors who turned pain into power. And in the quiet glow of the evening, David whispered once more the promise he had made long ago. You will rise. You will shine. And this time, his daughters answered back together, their voices strong and certain. We already are.